Hello and welcome everyone. This is Shivangi Mukherjee and you're watching Newscope. In August 2021, the Taliban regained control of Afghanistan, pledging a more moderate rule than their brutal reign in the 1990s. Yet, 3 years later, women's freedom have been stripped to an unprecedented extent. Today, we are diving into a critical analysis of the Taliban regime's impact on Afghan women, exploring how these policies reflect not only a form of gender oppression, but a crisis of basic human rights. Under Taliban rule in the 1990s, Afghan women were banned from education, employment, and nearly all forms of public life. When the Taliban returned to power in 2021, they promised to respect women's rights within their interpretation of Islamic law. But the situation today suggests little has changed. Promise of moderation have proven hollow. Today's ban on girls' education, prohibitions on women's employment, and limitations on freedoms of movement echo the Taliban's earlier rule. Many Afghans now say the country is trapped in a graveyard for women's dreams. International organizations like Amnesty International have labeled the Taliban's actions as a form of gender apartheid, a system designed to systematically deny women's rights to participate in society. The United Nations and other rights groups argue that these restrictions violate fundamental human rights, pushing for international action against these oppressive policies. Without access to education or jobs, Afghan women are forced into dependency and denied the autonomy to make even the most basic choices in their lives. This isn't just about restricting opportunities, it's a total erasure of women's public presence. The Taliban defends these policies as part of their commitment to Sharia law, but major Islamic institutions, including Al-Azhar University and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, argue that the Taliban's interpretation is a distortion. Scholars emphasize that Islam values education and grants women rights that the Taliban ignores. Critics point out that these policies are rooted more in conservative Pashtun customs than Islamic principles, raising questions about whether the Taliban is using religion as a cover for a fundamentally cultural form of extremism. Despite the dangers, Afghan women continue to resist even today. Across the country, women are running underground schools, practicing their profession in secret, and using social media to advocate for their rights. These acts of defiance highlights a resilience that the Taliban has been unable to quash. Digital platforms have become a lifeline, enabling Afghan women to share their stories and rally global support. But the resilience comes at a high personal risk, with the Taliban monitoring and often cracking down on dissenters. With half the population effectively excluded from the workforce, Afghanistan's economy has suffered severely. Experts point to rising poverty, a drop in GDP, and worsening malnutrition as direct outcome of these policies. The absence of women in healthcare, education, and other sectors further exacerbates the country's development crisis. Preventing women from working isn't just a loss for Afghanistan families, it's a crippling blow to Afghanistan's future. A generation of girls is being denied the chance to learn, build careers, and contribute to society. 3 years on, the global spotlight on Afghanistan has faded. Many Afghan women express frustration that the world's attention has moved on, leaving them to endure these conditions largely alone. Despite this, digital activism persists as Afghan women use platforms to keep their plight in the global consciousness. This digital presence isn't a form of resistance, a call to the world to not forget Afghanistan's women. As attention wanes, their stories serve as a powerful reminder of the stakes that are involved. Among the international voices condemning the Taliban's oppressive policies, India has taken a clear stance in support of Afghan women's rights. In recent UN sessions, Indian representatives have voiced strong concerns about the deteriorating conditions of Afghan women and girls. India has underscored that a stable and inclusive Afghanistan requires the active participation of all, including women. At the UN, India has highlighted that denying Afghanistan women their basic rights not only threatens Afghanistan's future, but destabilizes the broader South Asian region. The Indian government has also emphasized that access to education and employment is essential for any nation's development, a right that the Taliban is systematically dismantling in Afghanistan. India's humanitarian efforts have included aid aimed at supporting Afghan families and vulnerable groups. While India does not directly engage with the Taliban regime, it has reiterated that supporting Afghan women aligns with its broader commitment to regional stability, human rights, and security. India's position reflects a commitment to peaceful and inclusive Afghanistan. This stance, combined with international pressure, aims to remind the Taliban that true governance requires the voices of all citizens, including women, who are integral to rebuilding Afghanistan's social and economic fabric. The story of Afghan women under the Taliban isn't just about repression. It's about resilience, it's about courage, and the fight for fundamental rights. This struggle challenges us to confront how extremism, whether under the guise of religion or culture, can strip people of their most basic freedoms. The international community has a responsibility to support Afghan women, to amplify their voices, and to hold the Taliban accountable. Silence in the face of such oppression will be remembered as complicity. That is all for this time. We hope to see you in our next one.